Hey friends, thanks so much for joining us. Hey, we have Bo Pony back on the line from gold2020forecast.com. And before you respond with a thumbs down or a thumbs up, please listen to this interview. And let's welcome Bo Pony right now. Bo, how are you?
I'm great, Sean. Thank you so much for calling, and I look forward to speaking with you today. So thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on again. You know, we last spoke back in June, and you said that 2016 will bring in 3-digit silver. But before we get started, Bo, I just want to address a couple things. I've noticed that I think, and maybe it's just my perception, but in the gold and silver space, I think you've become just a little bit of a lightning rod because of your predictions and because of your dependence on charting and cycles, when so many of us are just so completely disgusted with the charting and the cycles because of the Bankster corruption. You've said in the past that the cycles are the manipulation, and I say it's the bankers that are the manipulation. Silver and gold are never going to break out until this Bankster manipulation comes to an end. What say you, sir?
I love your question. Thank you very much. And I will answer your question. Cycles precede everything in life. If a calculation goes wrong and we don't get a move in precious metals, it's because the calculation was wrong, not because the cycle was wrong. When we last spoke, we were looking for a big move in the month of June. Never happened. Why didn't it happen? I go back. So retrospectively, you have to go back and calculate why. And what ends up happening is that you find out that the math calculation was wrong, but not the cycle. So I am not changing, and we are not changing our position for gold or for silver for the year 2016. The calculations that were done for the month of June were nothing but a 3 to 4 month time window of error. And after recalculating, what ends up happening, Sean, is the math actually now comes out nearly perfect into the year 2016. So we have an exact match now. I have two cycles that I'm following specifically. One is the stock cycle, and the secondly is the gold cycle. And last time we spoke, I was my stock cycle was about 3 months off to 4 months off from my gold cycle, and now with the June correction, and then ultimately the drop into June and into July for a cycle low, what ends up happening is that our gold index now lines up perfectly with our stock market cycle. So we've got, for the year 2016, I know this is hard to believe, but what will happen is the year 2016 is going to bring a new significant severe low for the stock market, and at the same time, gold will then top.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. I just want to jump in.
Yeah, go ahead. Please ask. Yeah, I love the question, so thank you.
Sure. I want to just ask this because Cliff High has actually been saying, too, that the web bots are indicating that when Bitcoin hits 410, 412, 418, somewhere right in there, commensurate with that breakout in Bitcoin will be an explosion in the silver price. And the reason I bring that up is because just prior to the call starting here, you and I had a brief conversation, and you said that you think that gold will not just return to a bull stage and go up $20, $30 a day. It will explode higher. So I just briefly want to talk about facts. Cycles aside, the facts of the matter are that this government just raised the debt ceiling to $19.6 trillion. The debt will never and can never be repaid. That's a fact. The default on the bonds that this government holds is coming one day. I don't know when, but when it comes, gold will explode higher. So cycles be damned, the facts are facts. And $18 trillion in debt with a $19.6 trillion debt ceiling is an unsustainable amount of debt that will eventually bring this country to its knees. So I think there are some parallels between what Cliff High is saying and what you're saying. I guess what I would ask you, Bo, is that we're having this conversation in the first week of November, and you're predicting the beginning of a U.S. stock, dollar, and treasury market meltdown in November. If we get to December and people are listening to this conversation and that hasn't happened yet, would you then come over to my camp and say, well, it's because the manipulators are still allowed to manipulate, or do we just adjust the cycle mathematics again?
It's going to be hard to adjust the mathematics cycles now, John, because gold and silver cycles have lined up for 2016 nearly to the week, almost to the day. So to answer your question, it's going to be, I don't think we're going to have to adjust any cycles at this point. And you bring up an actually funny conversation or point. I got an email, or actually, if you want to know this, but I sent an email off to Cliff, or he actually sent me an email Cliff Highs, and this is dated. I'll send you a copy of it just to know that it actually really happened. So I will send you this a little later after the interview. This is from the 31st of October, and it's basically he's describing the cycle he sees. However, here's the words. However, I have had a long-term data that has linked a spike in silver called beyond the understanding to the movement in Bitcoin. The data has been silver would advance, then Bitcoin would follow. Then silver and gold stall. Then Bitcoin gets to over 408. Then silver goes vertical at that point. Okay. Mm-hmm. Here's my response to him. This is again from the 31st. So now let me overlay the silver cycle to you. And here, let me read this. However, now we're going to add some dates into this. Okay, so we're going to restate his words, but now we're going to put my cycle dates into this. This is how accurate this has been. However, I have had a long-term data that has linked a spike in silver called beyond the understanding to the movement in Bitcoin. The data has been that silver would advance, and I put in brackets. Well, there you go. October 1st. That was our turn date. That would be up. So that happened. Then Bitcoin would follow. Well, that exactly happened. Bitcoin followed, starting around the 15th, it started moving up. Then gold and silver would stall. Well, look what's happened since the 15th through now. Gold and silver is stalled. And then Bitcoin gets over 408. Well, did you check the price of Bitcoin today? 487. And when this communication started with Cliff was at, I think it was at 250 on Bitcoin. Okay, so now it's at 487 today. And then my next thing was, and then I'm not giving the date, but there's a certain date that I give to all my Gold Index subscribers saying on this date, this is when this should spike. And that will be at that point. So basically, what you just said with relation to Cliff lines up to the mark with our cycles that we've had so far, and everything is playing along just beautifully. So I will tell you that to think that this cycle is not going to continue is and then let me backstep that. Let's go a bigger picture here, okay? From 2008, okay, let's actually do another 7 years backwards. So let's start at 2001. We had a cycle low and a starting point for gold and for silver. A 7-year cycle forward puts a cycle high on gold in the year 2008, and in March of 2008, gold took out $1,000 and then dropped, and everybody was concerned, well, wait, why did gold drop? If there's a bull market, why is gold going down? And the answer is a 7-year cycle at Daniel's timeline from the book of Revelations. There's specific time points. There's exact amount of days. Okay, then the cycle ended, and now you add 7 years forward, and you get to the year 2000 and what, Sean? 15. Okay, so I am still expecting a new all-time high for gold before year end, and for silver.
Okay, but how do you reconcile the Bankster manipulation, the Wall Street manipulation, the endless paper manipulation of both gold and silver in the paper markets, on the COMEX, etc., with this cycle research, Bo? There has to be, at some point, you have to step back and say, well, your cycle research actually may be correct in the big picture, but as long as Bankster manipulation is allowed to prevail, again, cycles be damned, because how do you break the banks? How do you break the manipulation? How do we separate ourselves from this paradigm? You noted in a recent interview that China is importing 300,000 ounces of gold per month, and I note that they're mining much, much more than that, which goes officially unreported. So when China comes out and says, we are holding 1,700 tons of gold officially in our reserves, or whatever that number was, that new number, that revised number, they don't even have to report the stuff that they're digging out of the ground domestically. They probably have 10,000 tons of gold at this point. So again, facts are facts, but as long as bankster manipulation is allowed to prevail, the breakout just seems like it's hopeful thinking. And I hate to say that, because silver and gold holders, people that are smart enough to hold physical gold and silver, should be rewarded for their intelligence. But again, now today we see the Bitcoin people being rewarded. And again, why? Why are Bitcoin people being rewarded?
Bitcoin's move, I think, is irrelevant at this point in terms of price, because its numbers are going to go astronomically higher. This is just a warm-up, okay? People will soon when gold moves and silver moves, when this move happens, and I believe it will be soon, when this move happens, people will not be able to get physical. Okay, when they can't get physical, they're going to do, or they can, but it'll be a 2-month wait. All you need is another doubling of the people who want. Right now, if you have not even a 1% of the population wanting gold and silver, if that just doubled to 2%, you'd be out of physical. Okay, when that happens, people will have monies, but they won't know what to do with it because they don't want to wait 2 months or 3 months for their physical, so they're going to flock to the cryptos. Okay, that's how I. That's why all these numbers are so silly right now because they're so small. And the cycle, if you look, my video part 3, I describe gold cycle. Gold is in a descending bearish wedge. Gold is in a descending bullish wedge formation. After it broke out, and we were expecting a breakout the first week of October, and it did. It broke out on the 9th. It went up, stopped at the 200-day, and it pulled back down. Okay, so once this 200-day moving average is breached, because that's been the line in the sand for them, for the banksters that you're mentioning, for all these, for the manipulation you described. The problem is, from the charting standpoint, the cycles that we're looking at, and it was hard to gather, but we're out of turns. Mm-hmm. There's no more turns. Okay. When there's no more turns, that means there's no more options.
Well, what's true, and I'll agree with you, is that there's no more options for the Fed, right? The jig is up. The entire world knows that the dollar is fiat and that this government's going to default on its debt, because the only way that this government can pay its debt is by printing, and China doesn't want the bonds. Russia doesn't want the bonds. The bond buyer of last resort is the Federal Reserve. So when you said in your recent interview with Future Money Trends, my buddies over there, you said, and I quote, "If you thought August 2015 was bad, November 2015 is expected to usher in the start of the U.S. stock, dollar, and treasuries market meltdown. The U.S. dollar, treasuries, stock market bomb is set to blow in November 2015, end quote. And that wouldn't surprise me a bit based on the reality of what we're seeing, which is the men behind the curtain at the Federal Reserve have been exposed. The whole world can see it. The jig is up, Bo.
I would fully agree. There's 2 points I want to bring up. If you, as you mentioned, that interview with Future Money Trends, okay, please listen to the interview. And more so, what was the date that I gave in the interview? I gave the date of what? October 14th on our stock index was a turn point, okay? There's specific turn points, and a cycle can drag out by a week or a few extra days before it turns. But after a turn point hits, after a cycle turn hits, it's kind of like the wind starts turning direction, and it starts going down. So my point is, if we talk about the turn. So in July, our initial turn was around the middle of the 14th of July, and the turn came in on 21st. Here, the turn was on the 14th, and then please go to I did my stock index update yesterday, so I have it right in front of me here. So Australia, Canada, London, Hong Kong, Tokyo, and Switzerland. All of those markets turned, give or take a day, on the 26th of October. Okay, all three. The only 2 markets that are still, got life left in them are the U.S. and U.S. a little bit on Germany, but mainly the U.S. And again, as the saying goes, is he who prints the money will die last, I guess.
Right.
And all the markets I referenced, they all turned on October 26th. Now, what was a turn? A turn on a bear market, Sean, is, it's a lower high. So the top came in summer. That's when gold bottomed. That was a transition point. Following the top in summer, you have a drop. The Shemitah was supposed to fail in September, and it did. We had an up cycle into October, and that's considered a period of pause when a wedge breaks. Once a wedge breaks, you get a flush, and then a rise up and a pause, and that pause was supposed to end the 2nd to 3rd week of October. It ended on the 26th. Everybody can go check all those charts I gave you. That's exactly what happened. I have it right here in front of me. Off the turn, November is a down month, okay? And it gets uglier as the month progresses. So the markets are supposed to continue to melt and fall down for the entire month. There's a specific date on our stock index that we're calling for a bottom before year end, but there's going to be a very significant low, and that low right now, if I look at all charts, looks like it's going to take out potentially the August. We're expecting the August lows to break, and then that would cause a free fall deeper on virtually all, or hopefully, we'll see, but potentially all the world markets.
Right.
That will then, I believe, cause the second, after that drop, then based on my cycle work, we should have a second leg up on precious metals.
Okay.
And the first leg comes in November.
Okay, well, let's
so
talk
I'm
about...
still expecting...
Yeah. Well, you're still expecting things to explode to the upside in November for silver and gold,
Yes.
correct? Because you're saying 2016 will usher in three-digit silver. Well, my God, that ought to happen, because even according to John Williams at shadowstats.com, the 1980 inflation-adjusted all-time high for silver in today's dollars, right? If we go back to that $50 all-time high, in today's dollars, that's $600, Bo. And, I hear people say all the time, well, $600 silver, if $600 silver ever occurs, that's not a world you're going to want to live in. And I say, oh, really? Who of your friends, neighbors, and colleagues even follow silver? Who owns any? Nobody owns any physical silver or gold. Precious few, less than 1% of this population. Who owns any Bitcoin? A fraction of a fraction of a fraction of 1%. If Bitcoin goes to $1 million, you think that's going to matter to any of our friends and neighbors? They're not going to pay attention. They're not going to pay any attention to that any more than they do to $600 silver. And I like to tell people, do you want to get in a time machine? Would you like to go back to 1980 and buy silver for $2 an ounce? Because you can do it today with silver at 15. That's what it equates to. In real world value, in today's dollars, in this hyperinflated dollar. I mean, we haven't hit hyperinflation yet, Bo, but I think we're going to, and then I think you're going to be proven right. I just still say that in the meantime, these cycles are going to be interfered with by the powers that be, because their power goes absolutely unquestioned, and no justice is ever served, right? They just do what they want with the plunge protection team and the president's working group on financial markets. They do whatever they want and they get away with it. No matter of criminality goes punished in this society, as long as you're one of the elite. And I guess if you're sensing frustration in my voice, it's because I am frustrated, because Bitcoin at $450, $500 per coin and silver still at 15 just speaks to the endless criminality that we're faced with.
I think Cliff stated it best. I got to quote him this week, and this was a great quote. Rock, paper, scissors. You know who wins? Rock. Gold wins. Okay? Yeah. It doesn't matter how long they manipulate. What we had was two cycles, one complete bull market cycle, another bull market cycle just about to begin, okay? That tops out in the year 2016 before the pause, and then there's going to be another cycle that's going to then lead forward. But gold will win. Price will be dramatic. It'll be a dramatic explosion vertically. It will not be some gentle rise. It is going to take world by storm, and that's why people are not going to be, they're going to be saying, "I wish I bought," and by that time the price would have, it would have been reset or dramatically moved. And I think it'll be possibly it'll all happen in either 1 week or 1 day. But that's how I see this playing out. I do see something incredible coming this month still. And I do want to make reference to what you just spoke about 1970s and the 80s. Okay, let's talk about that just for a minute. I wrote an article, this is posted on the internet, but let's review this here, okay? 1970 to 1980, gold, its first leg up, it started off, there was a chart here.
And as you're looking for that, Bo, I just want to say, too, I listened to an interview with Andrew McGuire recently at King World News, and, he's probably not going to agree with you about your cycles research necessarily, but where he does agree with you is that this paradigm is going to change. It is changing now because of China, because of the SGE, because of the physical gold hoarding, because of the gold moving from west to east. He said that the paradigm that the bankers have enjoyed, this manipulative paradigm of pushing their gold shorts forward indefinitely for infinity, is coming to an end because people are demanding the physical gold. So I agree with you. I think an explosion's coming, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
And so let's go back, and I would fully agree with you. So let's now continue from 1970 to 1980. Okay, so we got it right in here. In 1970, gold started at $35. Okay, these are factual numbers. In 1975, it went up to $195. Okay, Following that, there's a retracement of 57% down to $104. Okay, if you overlay that exact same cycle from starting 2001 to 2011, that would have been a retrace from the high of 1900 down a retrace of $851 comparatively to $91. So $91 in 1970 was a 50% retrace. $851 was a 51% retrace. Okay, I wrote an article. I said, if that holds, if July holds, then the next leg up on gold and silver, specifically gold, that would be a 900% plus rise, because that rise went into 1980 of $850. So mathematically, that will put gold in just under $10,000 years forward. Okay, not this year, not next year, but years forward. So a price sub $10,000. Now it could go higher, but right now that cycle is tracking perfectly. The only difference, Sean, is that this is a stretched out cycle. So it's not taking 10 years from 1970 to 1980. It's taking mathematically, it's just expansile in terms of time. But the cycle is the same. And so a 50% retracement that we just had, 51% retracement is healthy and normal for the start of the next legs up on gold into the years forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the move will not be, and when it goes, it is not going to be. I at the 11-minute mark in my video part 3. And you have the slide, Sean, and I basically, it's title, I have it here right in front of me, and it's, I hope you can put this one, it's called, What Should a Gold and Silver Price Explosion Look Like Out of a 5-Year Unbroken Bullish Wedge? And all you see is a line going vertical. Right. It's called the greatest trade in the history of the world.
Right.
Okay?
Let me say this. I want to back up on one thing. You mentioned a $10,000 per ounce gold price. And again, I brought up John Williams' work. The 1980 inflation-adjusted all-time high for silver is 600. Do you know what the 1980 inflation-adjusted all-time high for gold is, Bo, in today's dollars, according to John Williams? $12,996 an ounce. $13,000 an ounce in today's dollars. So imagine what it'll be in 5 years from now in those dollars.
Right, and so we're in agreement. The numbers make sense right now, but there's nothing wrong with the numbers. And rock, paper, scissors, rocks win. Gold's going to win. It's God's money, and it will it always wins. It always wins. It doesn't matter, because the bottom line is there's going to be somebody at the end standing. I want my gold. I want my silver, and there's your problem. The physical will always create the problem, because there's only so much on this earth. You can't press a button and make it, and so gold wins. Gold and silver win.
That's right.
It's honest
and you
did mention China as well. I'm sorry, and then you did mention China as well too. Let me tell you, some of my subscribers, some of them are extremely wealthy, and they talk to people in China. Your numbers we're not close. You would not believe the numbers that China has.
More than 10,000 tons, you think?
Yes.
Well, yeah, well, Alistair McLeod, we've interviewed Alistair, and he believes it could be pushing 20,000 tons. I mean, we know that the 1,700 tons that they've officially revised and reported over the summer is completely fictional, just based on the fact that they do not have to report their domestic mining totals.
But
they're reporting everything they own, everything they pull out of the ground domestically, they're keeping. They're not exporting it, and they're not telling people how much gold that is, Bo.
Right, but the reason they can't, there's a reason why they can't report it, and there's an obvious reason why they can't report it, and that's why. So they can't tell the truth.
No.
And because it would create but something's coming.
Yeah, I agree with you. Something's coming. And the other thing I want to say too, Bo, is that one of the things that people who do charts, chartists, and people who make predictions and put their neck out like you do, they pay the price often because, again, my stance and my belief is that the manipulation will supersede cycles. And I may be wrong. You may prove me wrong here in November and December, and we may be having another conversation saying, Bo, you were spot on, and I hope we do. But again, people who have the courage to make predictions predictions often get their necks chopped by the manipulation and by the manipulators. And to that, I want to say in your defense, there have been many others that have stuck their neck out too, like Brother John and Peter Schiff and many other decent, good people who are trying to tell the truth, but they get their heads handed to them by the manipulators, because as long as the manipulators hold the power and as long as there is no justice in our financial markets, my thesis is that these guys will just keep on manipulating the prices until the day they can't. And maybe that day will come in November. Our guest has been Bo Pony from Gold2020Forecast.com. Bo, for folks who do want to subscribe to your service and do believe in what you're saying and do want to support you, can you tell them how they can do that?
My webpage is Gold2020. Forecast, Gold2020Forecast.com. I highly encourage, take 15 minutes, watch video part 3. It summarizes the videos 1 and 2. If you want to watch the other ones, that's fantastic. But spend the time, listen to the video. I describe the stock market cycles. These are monthly charts. They are not broken. They're actually not broken technically. They're actually all broken from a wedge perspective, all in August, including the U.S. dollar. So, and the dollar is set to fall, and the stock market is set to fall. And then the other side of the coin is gold and silver are the opposite side of the trade. So, watch the videos if you're interested in what we offer. There's more information at the bottom of the page. But I honestly believe we are at a precipice in terms of time here. I think the timing of this interview is extremely exciting. This interview is dated November 3rd, and I think we have an exciting month ahead of us here.
Okay, well, yes, and for posterity's sake, it is important to mention we recorded this interview on Tuesday, November 3rd, and we hope Bo is right, because if Bo is right, that means there is finally going to be justice for those of us who are smart enough to put fiat cash into physical precious metals, silver and gold in physical form. Real money, God's money. Our guest has been Bo Pony. Bo, thank you so much.
Sean, sincerely appreciate your time. Thank you.
And thank you. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I can't tell you how much we appreciate your support at sgtreport.com and thephaser.com and also thelibertymill.com. Real news, 24/7. That's our promise to you. Thanks so much. Have a great week. Bye-bye.